the Zidane thing to me is really quick to answer. It's, because of the struggles of late with Carlo and, the struggles this season, generally speaking. And look, there was definitely a glory period this season. We can't forget that, where there was a blitz, and that, let's be honest, it coincided with Vinicius at an absolute tear, Benzema healthy, and Modric fresh, I would dare say. I think all of that matters. But amidst this poor run, a lot of Zidane nostalgia has resurfaced. Like, Zidane, this wouldn't have happened under Zidane. We should bring him back. To me, neither Zidane or Ancelotti right now are interesting people to lead this ship. Because Zidane, last season, all of these problems existed. Same players, same 11, same lack of ideas offensively, same conservatism, and we can talk about maybe better defense. We also can't forget we lost 2 defensive pillars. This year Vinicius has taken a leap and has saved Ancelotti many times. Last season it was Sergio Ramos actually doing that, both defensively and offensively. Both seasons Courtois saved our ass many times. So if you want to argue Zidane is slightly better, I suppose, but to me, I just want something fresh and new completely that aren't those 2 names. But I guess the PSG, you bring up a lot of interesting PSG points, and I guess we're just going to talk about PSG every day until the end of the season, I think, because every time I think we're done talking about it, we talk about it. Somehow we just unearth new things to say about that game and dissect it in different ways and slice it up. But the XG that you mentioned from that game, it's interesting because when you watch that game from a Real Madrid perspective, it kind of feels worse than it is sometimes. You know what I mean? Like if we're saying the XG excluding the penalty was low-ish, when you're watching it in real time and you're seeing all these problems defensively, you're like, this is just a bloodbath. I also want to look at it a different way. To me, PSG not being able to create chances, like really big goal scoring chances, and I've seen that narrative too. I've seen like people like who are neutrals tweet things like and neutrals who I really respect tweet things like Real Madrid are too defensive and PSG aren't doing much offensively apart from passing and giving the ball to Mbappe and expecting him to break lines. And I think like I think PSG were way better still, and I think part of the problem of them not having great goal scoring chances, maybe they just made some wrong decisions in the final third. If Neymar is going to be back in the second leg, does that mean they're worse defensively but better offensively?
It just means there's another guy to miss a penalty that Mbappe wins. I don't know if you saw.
I cannot partake in that discussion. I'm too worried about jinxing something.
So all right, keep going.
Well, just that to me, like you include the penalty in the XG for obvious reasons. Because if you're going to say non-penalty expected goals and separate it, well, the reason why we conceded that penalty was because Mbappe absolutely took a flamethrower to Carvajal's soul, and that was a problem regardless. If we didn't concede that penalty, he was going to maybe fire off a shot and or go to the near post, cut something back, or shoot it himself. So I think you have to include it in the analysis. But I guess my argument is it could have been 3 or 4-0, and could you get carved 3 or 4-0 in the second leg playing this way again anyway? So to me, you have to change something. But I think the medium is that I don't think fans can't expect like this gung-ho pressing approach, high aggressive. I think you have to do something more similar to like that Villarreal halftime flip. Remember that? Where you kind of just bring it higher up the pitch in the mid-block and just get yourselves a little bit more control than you had before. What do you think about that?
Yes. So the thing is, like, I don't think that's a winning strategy versus PSG because they were able to stop the counterattack the way they were. And it's like really easy. Like people will always be like, just say sit, deep block and counter. But the deeper and deeper you sit, the more difficult it becomes to counterattack, right? Especially with the counter pressing that they were able to implement, which I was impressed by, and that whole little trick he did with Danilo. And we were basically relegated to playing long balls over the top, which generally works. But the entire point of playing Danilo there was he was going to win every single aerial duel, which he did. Now, when it comes to like the offense and can we concede more possibly, like there's no guarantee that we're able to hold them to, like, I agree with you. You don't just like completely remove the penalty from analysis because it's, especially in this specific context, it's not like it was a random event, right? It arrived from something that was consistently dangerous for PSG, which was 1v1s with Carvajal. But let's just say like it's something similar and it's only like 1 xG in open play. PSG would still have like a 90-95% chance of winning because we can't generate any offense, right? Like we have to keep both of those like assessments together, right? It's not just, oh, we kind of did well defensively. When that's paired with like the net XG, like the net XG difference between the two teams, PSG is going to win that game like 99% of the time if we can't generate anything, right? So when it comes to making adjustments, the logical thing is to assume like we can't do what we did in the first leg, right? Something has to change. The difficulty is like, do we have the tools to be able to change it the way we need to? Now, not really. Like we can't go out and try to assert more control of the game, but we can do something like you were talking about, which is like just try to play like the line a little higher, try to engage them at a medium block, and maybe try to press, at the halfway line, right? Instead of just completely sinking back. That would make a certain difference. My worry is that like PSG can probably work their way to the final third anyway and pin us back with the counterpressing. I think you can do some things defensively, but ultimately we have to figure out a way to break through the pressure and be able to transition offensively. And if Benzema is fit, that will help a lot. One option, which was just not used at all, was if we can't play on the ground, the one thing Jovic is really good at, even when he's not been able to score goals, is taking balls to the chest, playing layoffs, especially against that aggressive man-to-man scheme. The textbook way to exploit that is have a striker drop, receive a direct ball to chest, have people supporting underneath for the second ball and play through. That's one option, but if Benzema's fit, obviously that changes. I mean, we can still try that with him, but we have more possibilities to play on the ground. But also, I don't know. Do you play Kroos at the 6? Do you consider Fede? Do you consider Camavinga? Like pack pressure resistance in midfield when Casemiro has had 2 pretty bad games. I mean, his first half versus Alaves today is really awful on the ball. Like, I think that's where the adjustments happen. But again, all of these are small adjustments that maybe take our ceiling a little higher. I don't think anything dramatic is possible. Like people are saying we have 3 weeks to fix the press or something. It doesn't happen that quickly, I'm afraid. Like unless you're Antonio Conte coming in and you decide every single thing a player does. Like you have a textbook, you pull it out, you have all the patterns decide, and the players have to adhere to that. And you can, it's just about, to a certain extent, rote memorization. The press is not going to be fixed that quickly. So that's how I feel about it. I think there are micro adjustments that can be made that can give us more of a shot, but I don't know if there's like some amazing, beautiful tactical change that can happen that would just blow the thing wide open. Though I do think if Benzema plays differently, if he looks fitter, just that alone will make things look different than they did in that first leg.
I mean, I'm also convinced that Mendy wasn't fit at all against PSG. Like, it didn't add up the way, like his body language, the way even 50-50 duels, he wasn't catching up to them the way he normally does. He just looked like he wasn't in it. And that's why it's a huge blow for the second leg, because you expect that he would round out into shape for the second leg, but now you basically just didn't.
Yeah, I forgot Casemiro Mendy can't even play. So,
well, that's the big discussion.
I guess to
now
a certain,
is
right,
what you
but
do.
I maybe it helps Carlo in midfield press resistance wise, but I mean, I didn't even like think about Mendy not being fit, but regardless, Ashraf is a monster. Like the dude is insane. And if Mendy had trouble handling him, like I don't know, like what, for the love of God, do not roll out Marcelo versus Ashraf.
I would consider not watching if I saw Marcelo on the starting lineup versus Ashraf. I would consider just prolonging my life and not watching that. So this is obviously I agree. Achraf is a monster, but like we all know that there's space behind him. Like you can tell me that they're good transitioning defense, but as you pointed out, the deeper you are, the harder it is to counter because you're not in position to do it. And that's why PSG were so positionally superior to us as well. Like it's one thing to just be superior physically and better on the field, but just positionally superior. They pounced on everything because they were just there. They were there in numbers, defensively, offensively. They were in the right spots. And I think like part of the thing is, and yeah, fans can't expect like all of a sudden you can't flip a switch and start high aggressive pressing. But I think what you can do is our counter press has been pretty good this season. And you can start doing that a bit more. Now, the problem is you actually have to get into the final third to even attempt to counter press and be in position to do that. But again, you're not going to do it in the deep block that you were. And I think we just know now that PSG's transition defense is too good to even play that deep anyway. So you got to bring it higher up the pitch. And I think it just becomes interesting, like, so what do you do with that Casemiro? So now we can kind of tie into this game because as much as I want to keep going, have we passed the 20-minute mark yet? Did we break our rule? Probably, but
I think we're like 10, 15 minutes. We'll probably go 30, 40 minutes this podcast. I think we've already, like, the problem is I think we've already discussed the meat. Like, where we're going, if we continue it, we could probably talk about 2 hours, but as soon as we get back to the game, like, it'll naturally wrap up.
Well, here's a way to get back to the game, because what we have, did you say is 3 weeks between now and the second leg? So we have 3 weeks to talk about that game every day.
Someone said we have 3 weeks. I don't know if it's actually 3 weeks, but
all right, we will
would
blindly trust someone who we don't know and say it's 3 weeks. That game is on March 9th, so sounds right. I don't know. But
trustworthy.
It's 3 weeks. He's right. So to tie it into this game, I went back and I watched some of that PSG game for an article. And the rare I was talking to Lucas this on Thursday.
You sound so depressed when you said that. Like, just the pause and everything, like Vietnam War flashbacks coming into your mind as you said that.
I don't think people understand how depressing my life can be because, like, everyone says that you have such a great job, you can do all this and all that. You want to know what I did yesterday on a Friday? I'm not kidding. For my upcoming article, I think it might be launched tomorrow on Monday. I was watching preseason highlights of Luka Jovic versus AC Milan because I wanted to find some sample size of him doing something very particular niche this season. And I had to go all the way back to my notes to that game because he just hasn't played enough for me to extract anything else. So that's where I am. And so, just remember, behind all of these cool, fancy seats at the Bernabeu, there's lots of cold, frozen hands. There's a lot of watching random things that nobody should be doing. I don't recommend anyone do. I'm not even proud of it. Like, people should be going out meditating and playing sports and getting some sunlight. Don't do what I do. But yeah, so that's probably, hint of depression was probably accurate. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, so what I saw in that PSG game was what I saw in that PSG game, and I told Lucas this on Thursday, was that the rare moments we escaped their press was just Kroos. It wasn't Casemiro playing deep. It was Kroos being like, enough of this. I'm figuring out a way. I drop in between the center backs. I get the ball. I take advantage of some off-ball movement. I see the passes. I play them in. And, we all know Kroos had a subpar game overall, especially by his standards, but that's the only way we were escaping the press. And when Casemiro today in the 26th minute, I don't know, I'm not even sure how to describe it. He just dwells on the ball too much in the box, is dispossessed. Alaves have a great chance to score. I'm convinced. I've been convinced for a long time that Casemiro was not the long-term solution, especially in big games. But I'm also just convinced more than ever that Kroos is probably our best number 6 right now at this point. As a deep-lying playmaker, as someone who can facilitate and orchestrate things. And everyone's going to point out to, like, okay, so who's going to save us in transition? Well, you know what? We need to fix our structure so we don't put Kroos in that position at all. And that's why I kind of think if you pack the midfield and get an extra body in there, because I'm not sure what production we're going to get on the right wing anyway. I think that's our best solution moving forward, is just just put Kroos back there. And I'm still so worried that Camavinga is going to play defensive. Who was that? Matt sent us a tweet in Slack, which we retweeted from the Managing Madrid account, where he said, I'm not sure who the person was. I want to give him credit. Can I scroll up and find it? It was from, I don't know. Oh, it's from a guy named at Real Madrid _GO. He's tweeted in Spanish, but he said, if it was Camavinga who lost possession in that moment, Carlo would have subbed him on halftime. And I kind of think that's true. I actually think like we have the wrong standards and the wrong leashes for different players. So I just think that Camavinga shouldn't be playing that role anyway. But I'm more and more convinced now that Kroos has got to be our 6 moving forward. What do you think?
I think that's probably like impossible from like the dressing. Like that's just not going to happen. But
well,
I think
it's ironic because Carlo played him as the 6 in 14-15.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. But I think it should be. I think it should be a real option on the table. Like another thing for me is like Casemiro. Like we just keep running him into the ground. We're like, this guy's a tank. He's a tank, and yeah, sure, this guy has amazing athleticism, stamina superior to most players I've seen. But we've seen it like season over season now. Like we just keep playing him like this. The inconsistency of his performances increase. Like he's not the classiest player on the ball, but when he does lock in and focus, he has some moments where he's able to recognize people coming onto him, and maybe not with the cleanest tech, but he'll use his body to shield the ball, draw a foul, get out of situations. And then it's more about like just these random wayward passes that are inexplicable and stuff like that lead to giveaways. But you can tell it tends to happen versus like lower quality opponents in the league. He'll just switch off. It's like he's just trying to save himself, and then he'll just give away the ball 3 times inside 8 minutes, and you're like, what on earth is happening? I think we don't necessarily help his tendencies in that respect when we're just playing him. Like we're playing one of the worst sides in the league, and we had to start Casemiro and we had to start Benzema. Like with Camavinga, as I've said many times, he gives us the option to play a different way, because all of a sudden you have the defense coming from a different perspective, and technically you can still be just as defensively sound, because if you're comparing all the people that are as good ball winners as Casemiro, Camavinga is like one of like the 3 other people in that discussion, right? It's just that he plays defensively differently. He's more aggressive. He needs to be positioned higher up, but he gives you protection for that player playing deeper and changes their role to the point where they don't have to be this hero going all over the place winning the ball. They just need to kind of screen the back line and be more positionally sound defensively, which obviously Casemiro is good at. But that's also the primary strength to Kroos' defensive game, as opposed to being this ball-winning monster who covers a lot of ground, right? So I think it should be an option, right? I still think Casemiro provides a ton of defensive value to the point where, like, regardless of the fact where it's realistic or not, like I wouldn't necessarily be like, all right, we're just not starting him again. But at this point, I don't see any reason why, for example, versus Alves, right? It's a bit more complex because Kroos wasn't playing, but in these types of games, roll out this different midfield without Camavinga as a DM, him playing higher up and Kroos behind. In a game like we have versus PSG, where we know we're just going to be back and counterattacking and breaking through counterpress is an issue, and we have this repeated pattern of this midfield getting exposed in Champions League games versus these types of opponents, go for something different. But there has to be preparation, right? You need to pick out points throughout a season where you can try out these midfields and see how it looks and make adjustments. And we just haven't seen it, right? Every time Camavinga comes on for a long time now, it's in this weird position that doesn't suit him. He plays badly, and then Carlo takes him off, right? So, yeah, that's kind of my feeling on it, right? When we have options used.
Well, it's kind of weird because, like, there's just so many games where you could get away with not playing him, and like, it's one thing to talk about the games that we truly worry about are the ones against PSG, Manchester City, Chelsea, Ajax, where it's like we're really worried about it, him on the field. But then there are also games like this where it's like, as you pointed out, do we really need to have somebody like him? Like, I don't think he's a detriment in games like this, generally speaking, bar that mistake we saw today. I don't think Alaves are the team that are really going to punish you. And also Casemiro, maybe not so much this year, but under Zidane, he had that wrinkle where he actually was an important contributor offensively in an era where Benzema was our only goal scorer and Ramos and Casemiro were picking things up and scoring goals here and there for us. And he is like, you just look at the numbers. It's like he is like the top of the chart from a ball winner in Europe. He's just incredible. But again, like it's the same discussion we always have. And I'm not sure I have much to add to it too, because it's in addition to what you said, and it's in addition to like years of discussion on the podcast. What's up, YouTube Madridistas? This is Kiyan Sobani. I hope you guys enjoyed that clip today. That entire podcast actually went up late last night after the Alaves game. We actually recorded it, I think, pretty much 5 minutes after the final whistle, and we talked ourselves through it. And it was a lot of big picture stuff because the game itself was not that interesting to delve into, although we did discuss the tactical wrinkles, the differences between the first and second half, and all that jazz. But it was mostly big picture stuff. So that went up for free. Just search Managing Madrid on your podcast app, whether you're on Spotify, Apple, wherever. We are there. And just wanted to give you a heads up that the show continues on patreon.com/Managing Madrid. Every Tuesday, we do the loan tracker over there. And then every Thursday, we do the mailbag. The PSG second leg will be live on Zoom exclusively for patrons and patrons only. So if you want access to that, go to patreon.com/Managing Madrid. And if you want help booking your spot to Washington, D.C. or Chicago or Mumbai, just drop me a comment and I will send you the link to book your spot. Spots are filling up, and we got D.C. coming up in about a month. That's the next one on the tour. So if you need help, just drop a comment. Hope you enjoyed today's clip, and Hala Madrid.